Look at all the beautiful paintings. Someone asked me the other day, Bob, since you got the video show going on, you should show us how you do the paintings of birch trees that you do. And so today, I'm going to show you how I do this. And I only use 5 colors. So are you ready? Let's get started. But first, we got to think positive with Jesus. And so our scripture today is Psalm 31:24. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart, all ye that hope in the Lord. So let's be of good courage today and hope in the Lord. And Jesus will strengthen us. He will strengthen us to do this painting. And so as you saw, there were trees involved, and how I do that is I use the tape method, and I'm using this blue painter's tape that I got at the dollar store. And you could also use this tape, but I like working with this for this particular. And what you do is you have your tape down and you make your tree shape. This is just an old cutting board that wasn't being used anymore from the kitchen. And you also have to decide whether you want your painting to go this long way or the short way. And today we're going the long way. And so you take one piece of the tape that you cut and formed of the tree, and you place it like so on your paper. And that's going to form a birch tree, believe it or not. And this one too. See how I did that? See how I did that? And then you take the third one, because we're going to do a group of 3. And maybe this one is leaning to the right. Now, you see, that didn't quite reach the top. But what you can do is you can take another piece of tape. That's too thin. There we go. That's better. And you can line it up, and there you are. You have your 3 trees, and they're all in a grouping. Now you can take some other, these other tree shapes here, cut it in half, and you can have a tree in the back if you want. You can have as many trees as you want. If you had your paper this way, you could have as many as you want. You can have them up front, way in the back. The more they are in the back, the smaller the tree would appear. Do you see? You would just place it higher up on the paper. So you can pretty much have it any way you want. But that's the way I want it today, right there. That's what we're doing. And my colors, first, first, my paper is the Strathmore Watercolor 400 series. And my paints are Kuretake. You have Rose Madder 34, 60 Cobalt Blue, 46 Burnt Sienna. And this here is Raw Sienna and Payne's Gray from a cheap watercolor brand that you find at Hobby Lobby or Michael's called Master's Touch. I think that's Hobby Lobby brand. I'm not sure. Anyway, and this raw sienna is called ripe sienna, but it's the same idea. And it looks like I'm going to need more Payne's Gray there, so I'll put more there. And clean my paper off so I don't make a mess, which I won't be surprised if I do. Anyway, and I don't need that. Get that out of the way now. Put, uh-oh, see, I made a mess all over my table. There. Oh, I did it off camera. Good. You didn't see my mess. Anyway, that's my mess right there. Payne's Gray everywhere. Make sure it's... Oh, I got some on my fingers. I'm wearing it. But be of good courage. We can do this. Okay. Now, this is how we start. We started with our with the tape, making the trees. My brush, if you watched my videos long enough, you know I use a 6 round, but you can also use a square. This comes in handy later, but I'm still going to use my 6 round. And so what we do for our very first is we take some burnt sienna. See, over here, burnt sienna. Doop, doop, doop. And we might need a lot of this because... And then we take some Payne's Gray and we mix it. And you see that browny, grayish color? That's what we're looking for. That's probably too dark. That's better. Okay, what are we doing with that, you may be asking? And that's a very good question. See, I got mess already over there. I'm determined to make a mess. Anyway, bring this up so you can see. We have to determine how far we want the background to come down. And so maybe right here. And then we have to figure out that. Okay, and then as it goes up, maybe there's like a knoll or a hill there. Then we take our mixture of our paint, and when we just don't paint willy-nilly. Some of them have, but I don't. I like to make impressions of trees back there, and this is how I do it. I just start at the bottom here and whoop, just like that. You see that you're painting the background, but you're given the impression that there's trees back there. And trees don't always grow straight, do they? And so you wouldn't put that straight. Sometimes they're crooked. They go off like that with branches. Even here. And we want all that space filled in. And this is where I always run out of. I'm going to have to make more paint. And see, this is why you got to be careful, because you don't want the paint to run under the tape, but you want it to cover. And I got to make more. See, that's a little darker, but that's all right. And you're thinking, well, I don't really see tree shapes there. No, but you can go back in, and I'll show you. And you can make the brown a little darker. And you go back in and see there's a tree right there. Did you see? There's a tree right there. There's another one. Maybe that one crossed over like that. See, and when this dries, hopefully, I say hopefully, you get the tree shape. It kind of looks, there's like big trees back there. Maybe there's big oak forest back there. And see how that comes down like that. There. Hopefully you can see that. It's probably a little too dark, but you get the impression that there's trees there. It's not just a painted background. And you want the impression of trees. Now you take your blue and you want it thinned with water, because you don't want thick. You don't want dark. You want it to be light. You want the blue to be light. And you bring it right up against there like so. And you go up the hill. See, and you kind of blend it there. Now, you can also take some of the rose madder and mix it in here. And see that lovely shade of purple you get? You can add some of that so that it's not straight cobalt blue. Although you can use straight cobalt blue without adding the red. But the purple, if you go light, gives a kind of a sunny, like the sun is kind of shining on the snow, you see? And then if you just use the blue, it would look like that. See, and you don't you don't really have to, that makes it look colder. I like that. Interesting effect. And you don't, you can, I could just leave it there like that, and without going behind the trees, and then I can see there's that hill that's here. And for the trees, you can just, the snow, maybe there's an embankment here, or that's all going that way. There. And there it is. There was water there. Okay. Now we take more Payne's Gray and we make this darker. We want it dark. And we take it and we're going to put a tree right here. Maybe that'd be just plain old Payne's Gray. And see, it's got a we have a sapling tree there. And that goes off up in there. And we take that like that, and see there's a tree there. Maybe put another branch there like that. Go across like that. Yeah, just like that. And we want one over here, but maybe not at the same level. Maybe right there. And it comes down like that. And like that with a branch. And another branch there. There. That's not bad. And then we're ready to take off the tape because we're ready to go on. And what we do, we don't want to, whoops, that piece of course came off. We pull on an angle, see the angle right there? We pull, and that way you do not rip your paper. Now you can save the tape to the cutting board, or you can toss it. And I think I'm going to toss this. Just like that. And you see the ghost of 3 trees there. Okay, now with the with these trees, these are still kind of wet. They sort of got lost right there because it's wet there. I think I need to darken that there. All right. Okay. I'm going to start with the middle tree now. And what you do is you take just water, just clear water, and you get this as wet as you can. Wet the tree area. And you do it without activating the background, the snow. See, you don't want that to happen. All right. And you take some raw sienna, which is this one right here. Just a little bit. And while it's wet, you go up the side. See, that's not going to work for me. See, I want it like that. See what it's doing? Can you see what it's doing? It's like blooming. That's probably a little too dark with the raw sienna. You actually want more water than that. Just like that. Not so dark with the raw sienna. And then with the cobalt blue, you're coming up the other side. See how it's billowing out like that? You want that. This is the shade, the reflected light from the snow. See, perhaps you got a sunrise there. And the sun's coming up, causing the snow to be purpley. And then you got it's shining on the brown, it's shining on the tree. And then you got the reflected light from the snow. And then you take your Payne's gray and you go up the middle with it. Just plain old Payne's gray. And see how it blends. See, and that's probably too much water up there. Although you want that water. And then you're not done with it by any means, but you're ready to do the next tree the same way. So you bring down the color, the water, just plain old water. And then you take your raw sienna and you go up the left side of the tree. And then with a wet brush, you come and take some of your cobalt blue. I was going to say cerulean, but it's cobalt. And you go up the side, just like that. And you don't really want that to blend because there's two separate trees there. And then you come in and with your Payne's Gray and you go up. You may have, I have water on my brush, a lot of it, to fill in that Payne's Gray area. And you just lightly tap and you bring it down. And then you do the third tree. Yep. Make sure I connect there. All right. Then you take your raw sienna once again and you go up the left side of the tree. Maybe I'll start up here this time. That's a little too much raw sienna. Oh, gotta get water on there. Move that raw sienna around. You want it to billow like that. That's what you're looking for. That's why you have the water there. Because see, the water does it for you. And then, yes, don't forget the blue up the other side or down. That may be a little too much water there. The cobalt blue. You bring it down. There, just like so. That's a little too dark right there. And then you get your Payne's Gray. And you go right up the middle. Just like so. See how easy that was? And we almost have the painting done. Look how easy. And then while we're waiting for that to dry, although we could take our cloth and lightly touch to get rid of some of that standing water that's on the tree. We don't want puddles. We don't want puddles. We're just after taking water away, not paint really. And so that gives us, there's a puddle there. Yeah, there we go. And then while we let that dry, we take some raw sienna and we come down here and we put some grass. Like so. Maybe there's some here, some dried grass. Maybe there's some seed all around there. Do you see? And then put some here. There's always some tall grass growing around the tree. And some out here as well. And It looks like a winter scene, does it not? With birch trees. Maybe I put some seed around that. There. Just like that. And of course, if you had added a deer in there, the deer could be eating the grass. Now we want some Payne's Gray. And some burnt sienna again, just like the background color, but more Payne's Gray in it. So we want it darker. Let's see. That's not dark enough, so we put some more Payne's Gray in there. Yes, that's perfect. Although the Payne's Gray should be, it shouldn't be so liquidy. I don't like the liquid. Yes, I like that. And we take some burnt sienna. We don't really want it browny. We want it more gray than browny. Yes, just like that. That's perfect. You see? That is wonderful. And what are we going to do with that? Well, let me see. We take this tree and we're going to go just like that. And the tree should be dry now. It shouldn't be wet. If you see any blooming like that, maybe I should have started. See, that's all shadow there. Because that other tree is there. And so we go from that side to this side, to this side, to that side, to that side. And see, I made this a little longer because birch trees have the like marks that look like eyes. And you work, but you don't have them so close together. Like that's too close. See, and that's still wet up there. And you really want them thin. You don't want them too thick. And you can bring down to make the eye. And see, I did that side. Then I move up about an inch. And I go on the other side. Move up an inch. The other side. And maybe there's an eye mark there. And then you go up. See how easy? How easy as that. Isn't that fantastic? And you got yourself a masterpiece. You painted a picture. And since I have my Facebook page set up for Think Positive with Jesus, Paint Negative with Bob, you can share. I would love to see your paintings on my Facebook page. So be of good courage. You can do this. Very easy. And if you don't like the purple look here, you don't have to use it. You can use the cobalt blue straight, or you can use cerulean blue if you don't have cobalt. You got the two choices there. So be of good courage, and he, Jesus, shall strengthen your heart, all ye that hope in the Lord. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, like and subscribe. Thank you.